Hey guys, welcome to the Real Results Show, where we feature real health coaches and health practitioners getting real health results for their clients and, of course, themselves. As always, I'm your host, Bren Vermeyer. I'm a clinical advisor for FDN, and I'm the director of our tribe's amazing association, where we get to support our community with ongoing education regarding a variety of different clinical and business building topics. So this week, I'm super excited to have my good friend, Wynne Heilbrunn. Yes. All right. I always screw up last names. I'm like, gosh darn it, this one I can do. But then it's like, oh, I gotta start the show. You get that little bit of a burst there. But when she graduated back in May of 2017, and has been successfully practicing FDN as an independent practitioner ever since. So I'm really excited to hang out with her, have her share her story with you of becoming an FDN practitioner and what that's done for her personally and professionally. So, I'd love to kickstart the conversation it's my favorite question, like what brought you to the FDN course and community?
Yeah, hello everyone. So happy to be here. I was actually a dietitian in the 1980s in New York. I graduated from college in 1984 and went right into a master's in nutrition program at Columbia University in New York. And after that, I did some research at Mount Sinai Medical Center. And through that, I learned how I could become a dietitian. And that was really the only option I saw for applying the nutrition knowledge that I had. Sure. So I worked there for several years, and I was pretty disillusioned, to be honest. I worked on an AIDS floor and a cardiac floor. And when it was my job when cardiac patients were being discharged, I got to sit with them for a little while and basically read over a 1 or 2 page handout of what they were supposed to be doing when they left. And I just knew by talking about this and giving them this handout, they were not going to be making any lifestyle changes. And at that time in the 1980s, it was high carbs, complex carbs, and eat lots of pasta. And whatever you do, avoid meat and cholesterol and eggs and shrimp. And so, that's probably one of the reasons they got to where they were in the first place. But I also saw the families who were with them. And it was a cultural thing and I was frustrated that I felt like just telling someone what to eat and what not to eat was really not going to make a difference. So after a couple years of doing that, I left and I did several other things in the health field. And I took a really long hiatus. And it wasn't until I moved to San Diego in, 1996 around. Been here 22 years. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I re-entered the health field. Okay. And I felt like I had been gone for so long, over 25 years, that I actually entered IIN's program, Integrated Nutrition, because I felt like it gave me a great overview of what was going on. And I didn't even know about holistic health until that point, integrative medicine. So it was a great framework. And then after I graduated, I just felt like, okay, now what? I took on a couple of clients, but I was really starving for more of the clinical aspects, the science. Right. I'm a science geek, like many of us are. And I was really craving that. So when I found the FDN program, I was like, oh my gosh, this is right up my alley. So I joined, and after several months of starting the program, I actually was turned on to Beauty Counter, which many of you know. It's a safer, cleaner beauty company. My sister-in-law had joined before me, and she has to get breast biopsies every 6 months. And when she learned what was in our products, she shared with me, and I went to a local meeting, and I thought, oh my God, I had gotten back all of my FDN tests as a student. And they were all, had dysfunction on every single one. And then I started reading my labels on products and seeing that every single product I had in my home, in my bathroom, my kids' bathroom, had these, phthalates and parabens and endocrine disruptors. So I jumped on the bandwagon with that because I wanted to replace everything that I and everybody I knew was using, and I wanted to educate people. And so I joined Beauty Counter, and it took me a while to set that business up. And it was never my intention to grow the business. In fact, I didn't even know when I joined that I was supposed to be growing my business other than just organically and sharing the information. So it really took me off track a little bit with my FDN track. So I did end up taking an extension, and then I finished the program like a little over a year later. So now I just use it because I love to share, the product. So with clients as a welcome gift, or, when anybody's, there's so many options out there, but I love the option of that company. So anyway, that's my story of how I got to FDN.
I love that. Every week I kind of say this, and that's why, like, FDN, my story is very similar to everybody's story that we hear every week on this show. It always comes down to, people that were struggling with their health and passionate about reclaiming their health, and then being able to turn around and help other people do the same. That's our mission. That's what we're all about, is to teach people how to get well and stay well naturally, so you can turn around and do the same. If that's not global healing, I don't really know what is. But I really love so many aspects of the story you shared. You mentioned IIN, which we have so many IIN graduates, but also, I wanted to touch on the dietitian thing, because we have a lot of dietitians that come through our program as well. And I was actually in school with the intent of either doing, pre-med or dietetics or maybe naturopathic. And I ended up dropping out of school because I've said this before, but I was literally taking a chemistry test and calculating the energy of a photon and calculating it in joules to the 10th decimal point. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, people need me, so I dropped out of school, and it was around that time I found FDN, and, here we are today. But I love hearing your transformation over time of dietetics back in the 80s, and then, IIN, and, you mentioned beauty counter, right? And then obviously your FDN studies. And I really like that, where you're simply trying to educate people on better ways. Actually, just one of my trainer friends, I'll give her a shout out, Crystal. She's one of my good trainer friends, old coworker, and we did a thyroid panel at one point, and I educated her on, like, well, there's all these different toxins that'll mess up your endocrine system. And now she's a beauty counter person as well, and kind of the same thing, got her kicked onto that. But anyways, I'd love to hear a little bit about how your experience was going through the FDN course, where obviously, you run the testing on yourself, but, what did you experience as going through the course and working on yourself as part of the curriculum?
Yeah, so I'll step back a minute before I talk about going through the curriculum. So I thought I was pretty healthy growing up. Okay. I was an athlete. I was a competitive tennis player and a figure skater, and my family was pretty attuned to healthy eating, which back then, looked a little different than what it does now. Yeah. But when I look back, when I was in high school, I got strep throat pretty much every other week. And so I was And anyway, so I didn't know what effect that would have on me. But anyway, when I got to college, I looked back on my medical records, and believe it or not, I had made 23 visits to the Student Health Service in 4 years, which seems kind of crazy now. And so I thought I had been healthy, but I was dealing with a lot of emotional stress, a lot of angst, some childhood trauma, which I never, ever thought could be related to some of my physical ailments. Yeah. And it's not like I was suffering too badly. It's just I would get sick, and I had the beginning of an ulcer in college because I was a worrier and I was pre-med. I really didn't want to be, but I thought I had to follow that path, that whole classic thing. So anyway, fast forward a bunch of years, I got married in my late 20s, and a couple years later, wanted to start a family, and I did have some fertility issues, and which were resolved pretty quickly. But looking back on it, I realized my hormones were probably really, really low and out of whack because I basically ate carbs all the time and very little fat.
Right.
So I think that's fascinating now looking at it through an FDN lens. And then years later, so I had, in 2002, my third child was born. And about 18 months later, I had some surgery to repair, it's called diastasis recti, where your abdominal muscles come apart in some women with pregnancy. And sometimes they do not fuse back together. And so after 3 pregnancies, I needed that healed. So I went in for the surgery, and a couple weeks before the surgery, I was looking at the website, the surgeon's website, with my ex-husband. At the time, he was my husband. And he said to me, these breasts were popping up. And he said, well, why don't you get a breast augment at the same time? And I looked at him and I said, really? You'd want me to do that? And he said, only if you want to. So here I am living in Southern California, where that is a pretty common occurrence. I had friends who had done it. And so I went ahead and did that. And that was probably the stupidest decision I ever made. But I had them for 14 years. And the interesting part of the story is about 6 months after I had the implant, I went for a checkup to my GP. And I was feeling a little tired, a little achiness in the joints. And she did blood work, and she said, you look fine. I'll call you in a week. So she called me in a week, and she said, everything's great in your blood work except for one marker. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, ANA. And I said, well, what is ANA? And she said, well, it could mean an autoimmune condition is brewing. So I said, really? I said, what can I do about it? And she said, nothing. You just have to wait and see.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think much about that for all these years since. That was in 2003, because I didn't know anything about the holistic medical world. And luckily I didn't really feel like I suffered too much. I did have an explant a year and a half ago when I learned how toxic they were. And actually I did a 3-part video and blog series on breast implant illness, because it's also my mission to educate others. I was so grateful to the person who informed me about the toxicity in them. And I knew I needed a plan a year from then to get them out. But the point is, it wasn't until I started testing as an FDN trainee that I saw that I had, gut dysfunction, that I had hormonal imbalance, my immune system was out of whack, everything, my liver was congested. I would have had no clue. And so I was, when you get those tests back first round, you're pretty disillusioned. But I was very grateful that, wow, here I have something I can work on, then I can stop a process from moving forward down the road. So that was my experience with starting FDN. And then, and then another interesting part of it is I come from a family who really reveres medical doctors. My brother is one. I was supposed to become a doctor. And to this day, they run to doctors all the time. I mean, I was married to a doctor, and anytime any of my kids would get a scratchy throat, okay, erythromycin, take it. And I would argue with him all the time, you should get it cultured. It's probably viral. You don't just jump and give an antibiotic. But I always felt like I was fighting this uphill battle because everyone in my world was very tuned into the medical community. So I was thrilled to finally finish FDN, and it took me a little while to get going. The clients I was attracting initially were people I would meet in everyday life. I met a woman in my bar class, and then I met a woman, I did some afternoon nannying, and the woman of the kids ended up working with me. And I thought I would really be working with women hitting middle age, because I'm 57, but honestly, it has ranged from a 19-year-old male to a 72-year-old woman. And the interesting thing is now the majority of my clients are middle-aged men. And I never thought that would be my market, but it seems to be who I'm attracting. And I really love it because I feel like I really get them. They really never paid much attention to things that were going on, and they all have different symptoms, whether it's a rash or major fatigue or stomach bloating issues or whatever it is. But the interesting thing that I think ties them all together, and this is the part I'm fascinated to learn more about, and it's for women too, but I see it so clearly to me in the men, is they all have repressed emotions that they've never dealt with. Yes. And they have no clue that that is manifesting in physical ailments. Mm-hmm. And so it's my job, I feel, very gently to deliver that information, to at least get it on their radar, that if they're ever going to truly be healthy, they have to start dealing with their emotions. Mm-hmm. And that's been super fascinating to me, because from the very beginning with FDN, I was so interested in the mental emotional part and how our emotions affect our physical being. So I'm interested to see where that will go. But I feel like with every new client I take on, and sometimes, it runs the age gamut, I'm like, oh, I'm learning this and I like this. And, so I think the more clients I have, I'll definitely be moving more in a certain direction. But I like being open to taking whoever I come into contact with. I met a woman on a train over Thanksgiving going to LA for a Thanksgiving dinner. She sat next to me, and I was reading Dr. Tom O'Brien's book, How to Fix Your Brain. Yeah. And she asked me about it, and I was telling her about the work I do. And at the end, she told me about all her ailments. And by the end of the trip, she said, I think it's fate that we sat next to each other on this train. And then I met somebody a few weeks ago walking to my mailbox and getting my mail, and he became a client. And so while I am advertising on social media, not so much. I mean, I've gotten out there, but I so prefer just meeting people in everyday life. Yeah. I do have an opportunity which I just created. I was speaking to the vice principal at my daughter's high school, and he said to me, this was over messaging. He said to me, I didn't realize you were a nutritionist. And I told him what I do. And he said, it just amazes me how many kids in this high school are on medication. And I said, yes, I know. And there's so much you can do naturally to help help some of these problems. And I said, if you ever want to, I can come give a talk to the parents. So then he said to me, you know what? Maybe on open house school night in September, you can come and be part of our program. So that just happened a few days ago. So I'm super excited. I just have to figure out how I'm going to approach the talk. Certainly talk about technology and diet and sleep. But I probably have to make it on the shorter side. But, so all these opportunities are kind of opening up just because I think I've been open-minded with who I want to work with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, there are a lot of things about that I really like, including, you touched on a number of kind of different topics, including like the breast augmentation. And like, I'm glad that finally came up on this Real Results show, because that's a big thing in itself that's starting to become a little bit more talked about in our industry, which of course then means it's at least 3 years out before being a little bit more, I always see it go like, okay, it starts at the top with, the functional medicine community. And then that information kind of leaks down to like the fitness industry, the health coaches and all of that. And it kind of, you start seeing a lot more like hashtag gut health on social media. And it's like, oh, great. Like we're getting there. But the breast implant illness, that's a real big, issue that people don't really know about. And, you educating people. Or I also really liked how you talked about, not to bounce around, but I don't want to blabber too much, but working with men, 50-ish year old men with a lot of like repressed emotions and how that's manifesting metabolically and physically. I think that's a huge demographic that kind of gets overlooked, and it's kind of a little bit of, it goes both ways of like, well, I think professionals overlook them because it's not the easiest demographic to tap into from a health perspective. But also it goes the other way where a lot of, middle-aged guys don't take their health seriously. So I love that, you are tapping into that, because there's a lot of those guys that need help,
Yes.
But that's the beautiful thing about the FDN training is we all go through the same initial basic training, but then the sky's the limit on where you go with that and who you apply it to, a particular niche or demographic, or, do you get more into the energy side, the emotional side, different clinical aspects? Because that's the beauty of being a holistic practitioner is we're simply looking at it through our lens of, we want to identify as many factors, emotionally, psychologically, physically, and metabolically, physiologically, that negatively impact our health. And we're going to do everything we can to fix all of it, because that is the holistic model. So I love that. And you're getting all these opportunities organically just by being the awesome soul that you are, and sharing information and trying to help people. So I'm sure you're loving this experience. So now you're one of our AFDNP members. I'd love to hear kind of what your experience has been like with the community. I always love asking about the community, because we're not just an educational body, we're a community. So tell me what your experience has been.
Oh my gosh, this community is unbelievable. I mean, I rave about it to everybody. It's unbelievable to wake up every morning and, if you have a question or you want to share something, you just put it out to the group, and within less than 5 minutes, usually 2 minutes, you get more than one answer, insight. There's so many bright people. As you said, like tapping into so many different areas of a holistic health. I feel like it's like a dream for someone who wants to learn every single day.
Yeah.
And I feel so blessed. I feel like, even my social network of women friends has changed very much, because I'm just entrenched in this world, and this is what's meaningful to me. And I have found that has kind of dissipated, and this tribe is where I want to be. And I just feel so incredibly grateful that it exists, and I learn every single day, and I can't say enough about it. I'm just so happy to be part of it.
Yeah, well, you and I both, which is why we're both here. It really is just a beautiful movement. It's so much more than an educational institute or a certification or a methodology. It's a movement of hope, in my opinion. It shouldn't need to be said every week, but I think sometimes we're also caught up in our own personal agendas in life that we kind of lose sight of the big picture. But at the end of the day, I mean, millions upon millions of people are suffering from chronic metabolic disorders, and there is no pill or surgery to cure chronic metabolic disorders. And that just, the chronic disease epidemic, we're not lacking drugs and surgery. We've got amazing technology with that can save lives. I wouldn't be alive without that type of conventional treatment. But what we need a lot more of is the holistic modality, and FDN practitioners are the best in my opinion. Maybe I'm biased because I'm the director, but I've got to say, I know a lot of amazing practitioners and stuff, but I have not seen another community as empathetic and genuine and caring and educated as our group. And as you said, such a wealth of knowledge that is this collective consciousness. But anyways, so with your business model, are you working primarily face-to-face, virtual, or a little bit of both? How do you work with clients?
Yeah, I'm now working virtually, even though some of my clients are within 5 miles of me. But I took Jen Maleka's PBE course. I found that extremely helpful. In fact, I'm still only about 3/4 of the way through, and I've been at it for a year, but I've kind of took what I needed from it, and I do want to finish. But I found it's much more efficient to work online, unless somebody absolutely wants to meet in person. But, I have all my systems set up that way. So that's how I didn't think I would want to do that, but actually that's what I prefer at this point.
Very good.
But the interesting thing is, I I go through periods where I do just a ton of client work and research, and I kind of leave the social media marketing aside. And I know I should balance it better, but don't. But I think we all have, our fortes, and we don't have to all approach it the same way. I don't have to be this big online presence if I don't feel comfortable with that. And I have to listen to the fact that, I'm attracting clients just in my everyday life. So I need to optimize that. But so I am working, I'm getting clients by just walking around, going on trains and walking to get my mail. But I will continue the online presence as well.
Totally. Yeah. The virtual business model is amazing. You're not limited by geographical distance, and all across the world, and we can ship test kits just about anywhere. And just like we're doing right now. I mean, you're hundreds of miles away, but we're right here, right now. So I think that's great. But as you said, I mean, you balance it. But at the end of the day, do what's working. And if you're just organically getting leads left and right. And then, of course, too, every successful FDN I've ever talked to, where do they, end up getting the majority of their client? Well, referrals, it's people are so blown away by the results they get by working with an FDN. Then before you know it, you don't even do marketing. They seek you, they find you. Because again, talk about job security when there's millions of people suffering from chronic metabolic disorders. It's pretty safe career path to walk into. But very cool. So we're close to getting to the end of the show here. So where can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, wynnehealth.com. And
I see what you did there.
Wynne at Health.
I like that.
When I want to see you win at your health. It took me a long time to come up with that name, but I just use my name as it's spelled, Wynne. I have a Gmail, wynnehealth@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as Wynne at Health, on LinkedIn as well, although I haven't done much there. But that's where I am. And when you mentioned the referral aspect, I was just speaking to a client yesterday, and she said she started sharing some of my materials with friends, and I should have jumped all over that. And of course, I still have the opportunity, but I have not asked for referrals yet. So I think that's something important that we need to do. I don't want clients to be sharing materials with other people because we don't know what's going on with them. But anyway, so
totally. It's just something, it's something kind of like, don't keep me a secret, right? Like, I've been able to help you dramatically transform your health. So don't keep that a secret, help the next person pass it along. But definitely, they need that professional guidance. And, I mean, that's something I could go on a tangent about, but I'll leave it at that. Like, people need professional guidance, period. It's too complex. You wouldn't, go through the rainforest without like an experienced guide. Don't try to navigate your own metabolic complexity without,
But I also think it was definitely my responsibility to jump in and say, hey, I have a referral program, or, so I feel I missed the mark right there. But I mean, I have much more time to go back to the client and share it. But I'm just putting that out there to let people know that we have to ask for our own referrals, at least initially, until we get the ball rolling. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that's super interesting is I just completed a whole bunch of lab work myself after over a year. And I have so much dysfunction going on, which I thought I had some, but I didn't realize to the extent. So I feel like, a little bummed, but totally fascinating that if I could pick up on all this dysfunction and actually work to, heal myself, then the average person walking around does not even know that they have so much going on, because I feel pretty darn good. I have a few ailments here and there. I sensed I was hypothyroid, and I think I am. But the bottom line is, I was not expecting what I found, and I just found that fascinating.
Whoa. I mean, I could, I have my own imbalances. We all do. There's no perfect health, but I couldn't agree more. Even some of the most health conscious people, yeah, we've all got our stuff. So then you think about your average person living the typical American lifestyle. It's like, oh my.
What's going on under that hood?
Sometimes I can't hang out with people because they think that I'm judging them, which I'm not. I don't pass judgment, but yeah, I can't help but imagine. I'm like, well, based on what I'm gathering, I bet, it's just like,
yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. But the beauty
awesome.
is, we have we just have the opportunity being part of this community to figure ourselves out, and figuring ourselves out helps our clients. So it's all beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's a beautiful healing journey, and there isn't any better way to learn how to help heal another person or teach them how to heal themselves than to do it yourself. Walk the walk, talk the talk. So Wynne, absolute pleasure to have you on. And will I see you at the FDN conference?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't miss it.
All right.
Number 2. Yeah,
there we go. Can't wait. Yeah, I mean, you're in what, Northern or Southern California?
Southern. I'm in San Diego.
Yeah. Well, it's in your backyard then. You can't not go at this point.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Will be there for sure.
Perfect. Well, I'm sure, we're going to talk very soon, but obviously we'll get to hang out, eat some tacos in San Diego and party with all of our FDN family. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, it sure was. So, for those of you watching, thanks for tuning in. It really does mean a lot. We're just like we've been talking about a movement of hope and healing. And so Wynne is a amazing example of somebody that walks the walk, talk the talk, and she's doing that. She's getting well, staying well naturally, and teaching other people how to do the same with our proven methods. So, feel free to check her out on social media, go to her website, her Gmail account. Do you want to list those off just one more time in case people didn't get it first time?
Yeah, sure. My website is wynneathealth.com, and Wynne is WYNNEAT health. Email is wynneathealth@gmail, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as Wynne Health as well.
Perfect. So guys, for those of you watching, if you're struggling with your health and you need to find a good FDN practitioner or a good practitioner, none are better than FDN practitioners. And if Wynne resonates with you, by all means, you can reach out to her there. And then if you're listening and interested in becoming an FDN practitioner, obviously you can get in contact with us. We do have course counselors, so you can actually set up an appointment with a course counselor to talk about, is this the right path for you? Just like you would go talk to a counselor, to go to college. Same idea. This is a big undertaking, but by all means, I can't think of a better career path if this type of stuff resonates with you. So you can go to functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com/counselor to get that appointment. Or if you want to enroll in the course, you can go to functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com/Facebook Live. And I always tell people my virtual door is always open. I am a busy guy, but I always love helping grow our tribe because we need a lot more. So Wynne, thanks again. We'll be back next week, guys. Same place, same time. A different practitioner to hear about their story. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Wynne, have an amazing night.
Thanks. You too, Brendan.
Hey, thank you. Night.